This is the Timers Playbook podcast, and I'm your host, Tepo Pule. I'm a father to two beautiful boys, lovely guys, but also hectic. Now, raising these guys has forced me to up my game in all areas of life, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Welcome to the Timers Playbook, and thank you for tuning in. The black father is not a homogeneous group. They go through different things, different stages.
It's diversity of stories. Not everybody's going to be your friend. Not everybody
No,
you're
for
going to. You know, you're going to have some characters that you actually genuinely don't like.
No, Tessa, I think you're forgetting.
I'm just letting you.
No, baby. I'm a seasoned broadcaster. You forget this. I didn't start broadcasting Izolo because of podcasts. Sacrifice is always demanded.
Sure. There's nothing for Mahala, Baba. You have to give up something.
There's a certain school that does not want to admit my child because Ridula Hagal.
But let them be, let them play. I mean, and by you giving them chores, by you disciplining them, it's actually still letting them be.
I don't think society is ready for that conversation because you can't fix something without understanding the cause.
Yeah.
So we're like, let's fix this GBB thing, but we don't want to hear your excuses. But what you're calling an excuse is why it happened. And the fact that is not the why we're talking about. That's just a reaction that needs to be dealt with. Obviously,
Now, before you start listening to this episode, please subscribe to the podcast. And at the end of the episode, give us an honest rating. This helps improve our content so we can better serve you. Enjoy. Welcome to this week's episode of the Timers Playbook. I have Edith Utete, cyber smart parenting and business consultant, child online protection and digital wellness advocate, attorney and author all the way from Harare in Zimbabwe. And thank you so much. Welcome, Edith, for giving us your time and your space for this conversation.
Thank you, Tepo. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Edith, you've got 4 kids and you say that you've always wanted a big family. Why is that?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a big family. I have 4 brothers and 1 sister, but I also had extended family living with us for most of our lives. Okay. So at one point, at any given point, you'd have 8 to 10 to 15 people in the house. Oh. And I have so many happy memories being surrounded by love and companionship and so much more. So that's what I wanted for my children as well.
I suppose then you also need a partner who shares the same kind of values. Then did you find that? And was it something that was discussed with your husband to say, listen, this is what I want? Did he feel the same? Or as most of us do, like, okay.
Come to think of it, I'm not so sure if he was on board. But he also comes from not large, like they're 5 in their family. And the extended family is also not that large. But again, they also grew up in a mixed family where you've got your cousins and everybody else staying with you. So we shared that at least. And with our family, the 4th one came 12 years after the 3rd one.
Oh, wow.
So at that point, we actually were saying to ourselves, do we want another one? Yeah. But it's been such a joy having her.
Well, that's interesting because we are having that conversation now. I've got 2 small boys, one turning 7, turning 5. And if we should have a 3rd one, right? Because I've always wanted a girl. So it's 2 boys. And my wife is like, no problem. I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think I've done all I could. And I am okay. I'd like to move on now.
Then you get one of those special ones that come when you least expect it.
I think so, because
hopefully to be a girl.
Yeah, I bumped into. So I went to pour petrol, and this elderly gentleman that I always talk to that works there. He says he's got 4 kids and they're a blessing. So I must just relax myself. If it comes, it comes. If it comes, it's a blessing. So take it as you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Awesome. So we'll get into how you relate in terms of tech savviness and cybersecurity to your 4 kids, and how I suppose the approach is different for all four a bit later.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, I just wanted to understand a little bit about your background. Understand that you have a broadcast regulatory background, a legal background. So how do you move from that to being a cyber expert, a security cyber expert?
Okay, so when I started my legal profession, I actually just wanted to be involved in human rights law. And the focus was always human rights, human rights, human rights. But along the way, I missed an opportunity to do my master's in human rights, ended up working in government, loved serving in the public service. But, because of economic issues, I decided to move to the regulatory space, the broadcasting regulatory space. At that point, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. It was highly technical. A lot of it had to do with spectrum and bandwidth and things that I was just starting to get to know about. But I loved learning, so I learned more about it, got to understand telecommunications in general and cybersecurity in particular, because I was in charge of, among other things, consumer protection. And as I was going about my work, monitoring the TV and the radio channels, I realized that there was a tendency of inappropriate content filtering into the spaces or time zones that were family times. So you've got children who are listening in, and yet there's music that has some explicit content on it, or they're watching TV and some of the imagery that they're getting to be exposed to was not appropriate for their ages. So I made it my duty to look at the safeguards for children in particular.
Okay.
And as I was doing that, it was also around the time that we were having the move from analog to digital on a global scale. So as part of my work, I had to go to the World Radio conferences to look at how that shift could be done seamlessly and as well in terms of international law. It meant I had to learn fast. I had to learn a lot of things fast. At that conference, I had my first experience with the smart gadgets.
Okay.
At that time in our country, we didn't have smart devices. And I was so chuffed. Like, is this possible? You can send videos and pictures on your phone. And so it became more like a personal than a professional mission to understand more about tech and where it was going, and looking at the positives as well as the negatives. And this is how it all just blossomed. When I then had my contract terminated, it ended after 5 years at the regulator. I went to work for a law firm that specialized in IP. And one of the things that were happening at that moment was, with the intersection of intellectual property and innovation, so many things were coming to the forefront. Like, how do you protect your copyright online? How do you protect your content, your music, your audios, your photographs? And that then deepened my interest in that area, leading up to me starting my consultancy after my stint at the law firm, and then really deliberately looking at those areas.
Okay. So I think I'm fairly tech savvy, I think. So I'm 40, right? What in that realm of parents, maybe between our core audience is about 35 to about 45. What is it that you teach parents or you consult with specifically for parents, particularly those that think they know? What are we missing?
So when I started my work, it was actually inspired by my children. My children were in grade 4 and grade 5 at that point, and they didn't have access to digital devices at home. We didn't even have Wi-Fi. But at school, during their computer lessons, they were on different apps at school. And they would tell me about the things that they would get up to, the things that they would find, they would see online, the things that they were experiencing as well with their friends. And I thought to myself, this sounds interesting, but also sounds dangerous. You know, the legal consumer protection in me came out there. And I asked the school, are you aware of this? The school said, no, we thought they'll be playing games, or at least, revising whatever they would have been taught in class. I then went further to talk to parents, and parents also didn't even have an idea of what their children were doing. So what came out from that was that there is a huge divide in terms of what parents think children are doing and what they're actually doing online. There's also a big divide in that parents, because they think, I've given my child a gadget, they like to play Roblox, or they like to draw and color like my 5-year-old does, they're fine. But you would be surprised. Some of these children that I would work with, 6 years old, they know how to navigate YouTube. They'll go to YouTube. They will be able to download things from YouTube. They will watch. And because social media doesn't have filters based on your age, they would just watch and watch and watch things endlessly. And what usually happens with parents, when your child is content and you're sitting quietly and probably smiling here and there and laughing, you think, they're fine.
Yeah.
But you have no idea what they're actually looking at, what they're actually being exposed to. The other sad thing is that the cartoons that our children now watch are not the same cartoons that we used to watch. There's content there that has some interesting language, for instance. And with parents, sometimes you give your child the device and they've got their earphones on and they're watching a cartoon. So you peek here and there and you see them, they're watching Powerpuff Girls, all good, and you're happy.
Yeah.
Can you believe one time my daughter was watching Powerpuff Girls? Was it? No, it was the Chipettes, Alvin and the Chipmunks. And there was a little video that she was watching with the Chipettes. And they were singing inappropriate songs on that video with the little cartoon voices and everything. The F words.
Wow.
Yes, it was that bad. And these are cartoons for very young children. So what parents need to understand is that we live in a different world now. We might think that our children are in school and they're doing their computer lessons and they're monitored, but because there's also a gap between the educator and the 21st century student, these children will do really interesting things within those protected areas. The school that I'm talking about, those children were even hacking into the system. They had put controls to make sure children don't access certain sites. They were able to hack into that. They were able to
all these things,
bypass and go and watch whatever they want to watch and accessing whatever. So as parents, we need to understand that even at school, where you'd think there are all the necessary safeguards, you need to keep an eye on that as a parent and really get to know what's happening through your child's eyes. You also need to know what they do when they're on the device, whether it's a shared device or it's their personal one. And then another thing that is disturbing is when children get hold of their parents' gadgets. Sometimes we have these things on our own gadgets.
Guilty.
Me too. So they are very tech savvy, but not digitally literate. So they don't know when to stop. They will keep searching and they will find these things. They'll find your videos, which are inappropriate for them. They'll find your photographs, which are not for their eyes. And so you really have to be more present, especially when your child is using the tech.
Yeah, I think that's awesome advice, because I think we even me, I'm guilty of that, right? I'd use it even just yesterday. I had an urgent meeting and the kids were just acting out, and they wanted to play Subway Surfers. I've deleted it from my phone. But he was having a fit and a half. And I was like, dude, I'm going to download this thing because if I don't finish this project, I'm in trouble at work, right? And that's what we do as parents. It's like, cool, I'll download it. It's not great, but I need it to finish, you know? So we need to be cognizant of what's on our device for ourselves first, right? And be aware that our kids, they'll go anywhere. So for them, it's not just because you're on, YouTube Kids, they're going to stay there. They'll move around and get to where they need to get to. And then, so in terms of preparing then, because I think up until my kids started using my phone, when I was preparing for fatherhood, I never thought that I need to prepare for this world, this digital world. It didn't come. It wasn't in the literature.
No.
Right. And you obviously, you said that when you prepared for motherhood, you read a lot. I didn't read anything. Yeah. That's why I have a podcast to try now to figure things out. Particularly for fathers, right? And especially new fathers that you come across with. What is it what kind of content do you tailor for them? And what kind of feedback are you getting from fathers that come or interact with you?
Okay, so with the new fathers, obviously, these are fathers who are bringing in children into a world which is tech dense. So these children that who are coming into the world now are born in the tech space, in the digital world. And as fathers who are new digital parents, what we need to understand is parenting will always remain parenting. It doesn't shift because your child has a gadget or they're exposed to the world. We still have to be the first responders in our children's lives. We still have to be the safeguards, the gatekeepers, as I call them. So what happens usually because of how there's just so much information about how you should parent and whatnot, you can end up getting quite overwhelmed and confused about what is it that I'm actually supposed to do. But I say to them, trust your own intuition. You know, you've got that inner superpower in you, that sense of right and wrong. What is right and wrong for my child? That is the biggest thing that you can rely on, honestly. Because when you look at what is being sold to us, everybody has their own agenda, right? And they want our attention. They want us to buy more of these gadgets and download all these apps and all that. But you have to have your own stronghold on who you are, what your values are, what you want for your children, your family, where you see the greater vision for yourself and your children and your family is what you need to base on. You can then find your way better when you have a strong foundation as a parent. Yeah. There will be that fear of missing out. Like I know a lot of parents when the little tablets came out, the ones for the kids came out, and I remember at our church, people were like, these are so cool because, when you're in church, the kids, you just hand it over to the kids. You can get on with whatever you're doing. If you're in the car and you're traveling, it works. And then I had parents who would say, you know what, I'm actually not comfortable with having my children having their faces in the screens all the time. What else can I do? Do I have to be part of this? And I said to them, no, you don't. You have the right to actually say, no, I'm going to hold back and decide when you are happy and ready, when your child is going to have access to a device. And then as you do that, you really have to educate yourself. It's all about you just having your own values and running with that. It's a very judgmental world that we live in, where if your child doesn't have the latest this and that, you can feel like you're not a good parent. But don't be under pressure. Don't even be under pressure. I actually find that the majority of parents that I speak to would rather not have their children exposed to digital media, but because of peer pressure, they end up giving in.
Yeah.
And I just wonder sometimes, what would it look like if we all just did what we believe in and not be pushed by what other people think?
Yeah.
We would actually have less toddlers with screens. That's what I think.
And then
because everything is just so much pressure.
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept. And I suppose then how you socialize yourself, right? And deviating from the crowd, so to speak, is it is a very difficult thing, especially because when they leave here, my feeling is I'm basically giving my children to the universe. I have no idea what's going to come back, and they come back with all sorts of concepts in them, and my bigger son, he's very conscious of his image and what people think about him from an early age, which scares me. And when he doesn't have something, it's very clear to him that, look, I'm not like the other kids, and
sadly,
as we don't know, you don't want to disappoint your children, but I think you're right. You have to put your foot down and actually sometimes make a decision that's best for you and your family.
Yeah. And can I also add, what your son is projecting is actually what many children are experiencing. And this is partly because of, obviously, the socialization, the way they are growing up, the age in which they are growing up, but also because, that rootedness that we had and generations before us had in who we are, it's sort of dissipating, especially in our African context, because maybe, yes, we want our children to be world class. We don't want them to feel less. We want them to have an equal footing with everybody else on the international plane. But where I personally feel we're missing the mark is also enhancing their sense of self. Just valuing who they are, having that, for them not to have an identity crisis, because that is what they have. We had it. I remember in the 80s when I was growing up, and in the 90s, it was very easy to lose yourself because of what was happening in the environment. But one thing that I would always fall back on was that what my parents had done for me very well was reminded me that I'm a strong Black girl who had a lot to offer the world. And I think this is what really keeps me going when things get tough for me. It built my inner resilience, knowing that I'm good enough as I am, with my dark skin and my body shape and everything about me. Even though, yes, occasionally I would compare myself with others and seek validation. But now for our kids, it's worse because the comparison is right there in their faces all the time. And when they then go to school or to meet with friends, everybody is talking about a particular thing. And you feel like, I don't want to be left out. Yeah. So it's hard.
So then are these values of yours, is it something that you say you got from your parents? And I like the idea that you try, well, not try, but you inculcate them into your courses, your consultancy, and your teaching, because a lot of time when I speak to tech experts, that part never comes in. It's almost as if the human experience is void of this online experience, right? So in your I suppose teaching or education, whatever it is it something that's conscious of you? Like, listen, we're still human beings after all. Technology is just, I suppose, an aid or a tool.
Absolutely. Those are actually the words that I use. Yeah.
No, cool.
Need to be reminded of the human factor.
Yeah. No, we definitely do. So this interesting thing that you mentioned earlier, right? These parents that don't want their kids online. I think in our conversation last week, I was like, I actually do not want my kids online because myself, I don't want to be online, and I'm there minimally. And there's some parents that do not mind, right? Some even have kids that are becoming influencers and brands in their own right while they're still very young. And having grown up in the media, that's something that scares me. I do not want to expose my children like that yet. So what's your approach to the two different schools of thought?
So when I started my work, I'll be honest, I was very anti keep the tech away from the kids, keep it away. That was just my messaging all the time.
Yeah.
But you know what? I've actually found that for some children, it is a support tool for them. You know, children have different personalities and different intellects as well. And you'll find there those children who, when they go online, it is not all doom and gloom with them. They're actually thriving when they're there. They do very well academically. For example, during the COVID era, you find some children who were not that academically astute. When they went for the virtual classes, they improved, their grades improved. And yet there's some whose grades went down. So the approach for both sets of parents, whether your personal feelings are for your child to go online or not, you need to put the child at the center of your decision making.
Yes.
Well, you really need to understand your child. What are their strengths, their limitations? Because if you just put like an umbrella over them and say, no, tech is bad for children, no.
Don't do this.
Or you say, yes, or you say, oh, I saw so-and-so's child is doing so well online, so my child should get into this space and be an influencer. And you're pushing a child who's actually not interested in that into something that they don't like. It mustn't be about you. In other words, don't let it be about you. Let it be about the child.
I guess,
and it scares me too as a parent.
That's an ethos for parenting all around, right? It's not about you.
No, it's not.
Is it not really though?
No, it isn't. Because your role, and please excuse me, but I'm a God-fearing woman, and I base a lot of what I do as a parent on biblical principles. And when I look at how it is with God, if it was about him, we would all be doing his bidding, wouldn't we? There would be no sin, and there would be, and I think that's where I get my kind of my blueprint, that in as much as I will love my child with all my heart and soul, and I will guide them and guard them and protect them fiercely, I will not live their life for them. I will not impose my own ambitions on them. In as much as I will lay down the foundations of being a good person, being a good citizen, possibly eventually becoming a good parent themselves, I will put those in place. But at the end of the day, children turn out the way they will turn out.
Eish.
Yes.
Eish. You know, I realized that, and I'm like, all you can really do is guide. Right? So it's their journey.
Yeah, it's their journey, and we are here to guide and redirect. And when they fall, we need to pick them up and to make sure that they get back on their feet. They do not falter. We are there to provide the resources that they need for them to succeed in their journey. But we can't be walking the journey for them.
Sure.
We can't. Also, it's not fair for us to base things upon our own experiences, our own limitations. And this is what I find in the tech space, because a lot of us are quite fearful of the tech. We are fearful based obviously on things that we've seen and heard, but also because we lived a different life from them. So a lot of what's happening in their lives doesn't make sense to us. It scares us because we didn't have the experience. We can't relate for the most part. And then what I would then say to that is sometimes we also need to come down to their level and put ourselves in their shoes, walk that journey with them in terms of getting to know their experiences, what's going on in their spaces, who are they connecting with, what are they doing when they're online, what if they're gaming, what games they play. You actually get to play with them, discuss your concerns with them, understand what they are benefiting from it.
Yeah.
It really opens your mind up to other experiences. I did not want my children on Snapchat and TikTok because of academically what I was reading into it.
Okay.
Like, this is so bad. Even the United States government wants to get rid of TikTok. This is so bad because predators will have access to my children.
Hey.
And all the alarm bells are coming up. But then sitting down with my kids and getting to experience with them what they were doing there. I found myself on TikTok one day.
Oh, really?
And I found, you know what, it's actually not so bad.
It can be fun, right?
It can be fun. It can be
educational as well, yeah.
Yeah. And just like you said, and what I often say, it is a tool. It is a tool that will be used it can be used for good or bad. What we need to do is take away the fear a little bit and get more understanding. Yeah. And then when you finally make the decision to keep your child off the tech or to let them get into it, at least you know what you're getting yourself into. And even as you let your child get into the tech space, get into social media, take it a step at a time. The sad thing is we just throw them into the deep end, sort of.
Yeah.
Without
and leave it to them, right?
And leave it to them to figure it out.
Yeah.
And we think because they know how to download these tools and they know how to find their way around a gadget, then they're going to be fine. But there's that inner work that needs to be done, the emotional intelligence that they need to work on, the social skills, the etiquette, the resilience building, all of which are lacking right now. And so if you're a parent who wants your child to get into it, have strong foundations first and build into it bit by bit. Don't even be under pressure that because this child that you're trying to emulate has 10K followers or 1 million followers, so you want your child to get to that quickly. What does that really mean? I get to understand. So what when they have those millions of followers, what is it going to do to their mindset, to their emotional state, to their mental health? And as you understand and navigate that, you'll find sometimes you make different decisions as parents. Yeah. And same on the other side as well.
Yeah. No, I hear you, and I definitely agree with that, you know. And I guess the social media and tech will feed you what you want it to feed you, right? So if your child finds themselves isolated, feeling lonely, not wanted, they will find content that I guess affirms that, right? But if you've laid a strong enough foundation in terms of, for example, for you guys, your Christian values and just values as a family, then the hope for all of us is that I've done enough, and that will be enough for them to understand and navigate whatever world they go into.
True.
So the other big topic is children and sexuality online, right? This idea of kids being groomed online, and just overall some of the content that we see and parents worry about the most. So for parents out there, what's your advice for them in relation to that? What can they do, particularly for teens, right? And when they get into that space and they start sending each other messages or nudes or all these things. Yeah. So sex and sexuality online.
Oh, yeah. That one was a tough one for me as well as a parent. Because, culturally, we don't talk about sex to our children. We don't even want them to know that there's such a thing. And
as
we live under the illusion. And we live under the illusion that they don't know that we also have sex as parents. It was really a tough one for me. But what I found was that with these children, because they've got access to information at their fingertips at any given time, they can find the information that you're withholding from them. I had to change my parenting style.
Oh, wow.
I had to make a lot of really uncomfortable shifts. My husband and I had to talk about it and say, you know what, at the end of the day, whether we do this thing with them or not, they are going to do it anyway. They're going to find the information. They'll probably even experiment. And again, just like we're saying about tech, that if we let them figure it out, they will likely figure it out in ways that go against our values and what we are trying to prepare them for. So we got to a point where we date our children. My husband takes our daughters out,
Okay.
as well as our son, and I try to do the same. And we kind of get to know them on personal levels and make
alone.
it less awkward. Yes, just
So like
me
each
and my
child
son.
gets their own time. Oh, wow.
Yes,
Okay.
time for each child, away from home, away from everybody else. And you go and do something that is an activity that they enjoy. And as you're getting on with that, to make it less awkward, you sort of get the subject of sex and sexuality into the conversation. One of the things that I do with parents that I work with, I give them some talking points. For example, if there's something topical in the media, at one point, the issue of sexting was very big. Also, sharing of nudes was also very big in our community. So I'll say, you know what? I heard the other day, there's a girl from one of the schools who sent nudes to her boyfriend and he spread them all over. Do you know about that? Have you heard about that? And they'll tell me, oh, yeah, we heard about it. Oh, so what are your thoughts on that? If you were in that girl's shoes, how would you feel? How would you deal with the situation? And then we discuss it. And then at some point, I would then say, but you know, my views as a parent are that you need to do this. You need to, and then ABC, give them the steps. It was tougher with the preteens and the teenagers because, you know, they're very opinionated, but they're also very secretive.
Yeah.
And they will try to keep information from you. They will try to hide things. But the more we had these dates and conversations, the more I found they would open up, they become more relaxed, discussing their fears, the issues that they've experienced, and so forth. So, in a nutshell, sex and sexuality are part of life. And it's high time as parents we shift some gears in how we parent and things that we talk to our children about. We need to talk to them about how they can protect themselves in the event that, for instance, someone is trying to get in touch with them. You know, when you talk about grooming and when we talk about with the young men, they apparently like to send pictures of their privates to each other now.
I've heard about this.
And so we need to prepare our children for that. If it's the girl child preparing them, you will probably find this will happening to you. You'll find people trying to connect with you in this way. If it's the boy child, they are also getting those, like now there's just no difference between girl and boy really, and the kind of content that they receive and send. So it's really about preparing them of what's going to happen in the event that they're not yet on social media. You find age-appropriate ways of having those discussions around sex with them. also ways that are in sync with your values as a family. But keeping in mind what is happening, the current trends of what's happening with young people. It really helps to have information. You don't have to know everything about everything, but to have at least one or two examples so you can have practical examples for discussion points. You also have referrals, which are not just mommy or daddy trying to impose things on us. It's, look, this is what I have come across. What do you think? Let's talk about it. Now, you see, this is where I have a concern, like especially when they're in their preteen stage and they're pushing you for, I need a phone, I want to be on social media. You then can have those issues, those examples to say, I would want you to have the best of both worlds, but these are my concerns.
Yeah.
These are the things that could happen. There's so many examples online if you really want to go there, where you can share with them experiences of other young people and why it is an issue for you. And then find a way to also just continuously check on your child, what's going on in their lives. They still find talking about sex very uncomfortable, especially if someone else is asking them for nudes, or if they have shared nudes before you had the phone. They don't know how to handle that. If they're experiencing cyberbullying in the form of body shaming or whatever, you need to continuously have those discussions with them, find out where they are at, what's going on in their lives, and be non-judgmental. And for us African moms, we try not to be as African as we are, condemning and criticizing and raising your voice, because that will just shut them down. So whichever approach, whether it's at the preparation stage or at the point where they've made mistakes online, or at the point where they are having people contact them and trying to have those sex conversations with them, you need to be involved at every stage.
Okay. Sure. No, that's great advice. I like that idea of dating your kids, actually. You know, I've heard that a lot. And now that they're getting older, I can see it's important that I learn to understand them as individuals, because everything we've done so far has been together. You know, so I think that's great advice. So the other big thing is artificial intelligence, right? So it's a major point of contention for some people. So for me, like for me, it's a tool, right? So because in my work, I tend to write a lot of copy. So I'd use ChatGPT a lot. It really helps with copy, but also just generating ideas and planning for things like podcasts, you know. And at work with designers. So something like Midjourney is very useful for them in terms of recreating images. But also then some people can use all this technology for nefarious means, right? So things aren't real, things aren't what they seem to be. For parents that do not understand what this thing is or are fearful of it, what is this thing? And how can they use it as a tool, not just for them, but also for their kids?
So like anything that is tech related, you need to figure it out for yourself. Find the information that is around how you use the AI, what benefits you get from it, but also as you then bring the children in. You know, like I have one of my children is very artistic. She loves to draw and color and paint, and I introduced her to Canva. So we would go onto Canva together and make mistakes and figure things out and discover new features together, and make it a fun thing for us. But so as we navigate these features and find the new developments coming up, like, you know, now on Canva, you also have the AI features there where you can generate images and all that. And we also then get into the discussions about our fears around AI, the things that we are concerned about, as well as the things that we find very helpful. And try not to make it a very complex issue, because when you talk about tech and artificial intelligence, emerging technologies, it always has felt, for our generation at least, like a tech-key subject. Like if I am not an IT engineer, I should not be talking about it. I have no right to talk about these things. But the reality is, those the shifts that have happened in recent years, recent months, are such that everybody has a say in what's going on. So we have a campaign that we are running called the Internet That We Want. And one of the things that we've talked about in the communities that I'm in is that as parents, we are happy that we've got these developments that are definitely going to change the way that we do our work, the productivity levels, time saving and everything. But there's things, like you said, there are people who may use the same things for nefarious activities. And at the end of the day, what we want is to protect our children as the largest consumers of these services. So what we are doing there is we are informing ourselves, getting to know more about everything that's going on in the AI space and putting our voice to it. Like, shouldn't this thing be regulated? And how then can it be regulated? How is it protecting children? Because just AI, tech in general, is generally not created for children. It was not designed for children. And we want the fact to be acknowledged that children are among the biggest consumers. Therefore, everything surrounding their use of AI should take that into account. It should have rail guards for them, to watch out for them, be safeguards, to make sure that they are not at risk of anything that could potentially be a harmful factor in their use of those things. So what we are doing as parents in my community is we are also using the AI as it comes up. We use it. We get to see, and you'll find yourself, even as you're using it as an adult, that there are things that you're like, wait a minute, I'm not really happy about this. In spite of the hullabaloo that goes on. I love ChatGPT. I've also used it. But when it comes to children, you'll find, like, my teenagers will say, this thing should have been there when I used to write essays, when I needed to do speeches for public speaking. And I was like, yeah, it's a great tool because it gives you guidelines and everything, but it is a tool. It's not supposed to
you
take
still have to write the speech. It's just to help you clean it up and edit at most.
Yes. So you find their perception about the tools are such that they feel like it's going to replace them having to do the work, having them use their imagination. So we also need to educate our children around that this remains a tool. Your intuition, your creativity, your imagination, your intellect still is required. It still has to come to the forefront. Your authenticity in the things that you're going to produce are still very important. And the humanity aspect that we talked about still has to come out. So, at the end of the day, it's about you, as parents, informing ourselves, getting educated about the tools, using them, and really having a practical demonstration of what they can do and their limitations, and making your voice heard in all the spaces where there is need for you to be heard, and then getting your children educated as well, so that as they use the tools, they do so in a very informed, educated way, which is more productive than harmful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man, for talking about tech. I actually didn't expect it. I thought it was going to be a very technical conversation. I was like, yeah, this one is, because also technical jargon can throw people off. Even throws me off, right? Even ChatGPT when it first came, the way they were writing about it until I tried it, right? And I spent more time not prompting it, but more time actually getting my story straight, and then it helps me with the edit, right? So, so the thing is work on the idea, the creative, and everything else, and then for me, it's just a matter of cleaning up my text more than anything. Yeah, meaning that even if it's not going to help me write the speech, because then the speech is not from me, but I want to end our conversation with your line, and I think this is appropriate, particularly for this thing, the cyber world. You said be kind to yourself and give yourself grace. Parenting does not come with a manual, and no one else has figured it all out.
Despite popular belief.
That is awesome. That is an amazing takeout. So thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Thank you, Tebo. This was a very interesting conversation, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you so much to our guest for taking the time to share their story. In fact, thank you to all the guests for coming on to this podcast. And a big shout out to our engineer, Unatin Dubeni, for pulling the show together. Most importantly, thank you to you, our loyal listener. None of this is possible without you. If you haven't already, before you leave, please rate the content and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any updates. Until next time, hola.